Inside Outer Limits is a regular feature on the Paranormal UK radio network.
Hello everybody once more, and welcome to another edition of the Inside Outer Limits radio show with myself, Chris Evers, the man from the Outer Limits magazine, and of course, as always, my co-host is UFO royalty, the one and only Mr. Philip Mantle. Hello Phil.
Good evening, Chris. Nice to speak to you again, mate.
You as well, buddy, you as well. We've got a bit of a different show this evening, haven't we?
Yes, we plan to speak to Don Schmidt, a well-known Roswell researcher, best-selling author, about his new book that he's co-authored with Tom Carey. It's called Touched by Roswell. It's out on July the 1st. A very commercial book, very different from the books that Don and Tom have written before. But technical issues, as we sometimes have when we use things like Skype and other applications, we can't get through to him for some reason. So it's me and you tonight.
Oh dear. Well, there you go, folks. Thanks for joining us. We'll speak to you next time. No, well, we've got quite a few things going on, though, haven't we, at the moment, Phil? I mean, everybody globally is waiting for this release from the Pentagon.
Well, yeah. I mean, for those that aren't aware, this show tonight is recorded on the 23rd of June, which is 2 days, before the Pentagon's report comes out on Friday. And there's been 1,001 articles and posts about it, different viewpoints. I've read a few myself. There's no way you can keep up with it all, Chris.
Oh, no,
so
absolutely.
We'll see what happens on Friday. I mean, from my point of view, for those that are looking for what they call disclosure, and by that they mean that the US government is going to confirm that we are or have or are continuing to be visited by beings that are not of this world, extraterrestrials.
Oh, right, yeah. So you actually then that's the case. Then obviously the Roswell alien autopsy must be real, mate.
Well, that's what disclosure means. Let's not mess about. If people want confirmation that UFOs are alien visitors, as I've tried to, discuss with some people, I says, if it was that kind of disclosure, surely it wouldn't come from any one government. Whatever the UFO phenomena is, and I say that phenomena, not phenomenon, plural, then it is international.
Yeah.
So any kind of, announcement, i.e. disclosure, would surely have to come from a multinational list or department or, whatever you want to call it, like maybe the United Nations, for example.
Yeah.
And of course, not every country is tied into the UN, but it would have to be an international announcement, not just one country saying, we've had these sightings by our Navy and our Navy pilots, and we think that they're extraterrestrial. But that wouldn't happen. It just wouldn't. So I've been trying to get my head around a lot of what may or may not come out, and it'll be interesting, Chris. I want to hear your views on it as well, to see which one of us either got the closest or nowhere near. But what's your thoughts first? You go first.
Well, my personal thoughts is you can forget anything that happened in 1947, 1960s, 1980s, or any other year prior to the Tic Tac footage being released. I think they will completely and utterly ignore anything prior to this. Was it the USS Princeton or was it the Nimitz or something back in 2004? I think anything after that date, they'll kind of acknowledge that yes, it's unknown craft. They're certainly not American. In fact, I think so many of people that have been involved, I think Lou Elizondo and I think Chris Mellon have said that as well, that, you know, as far as we're concerned, it's not an American craft. Now, if it's not American, which we know is one of the most advanced aerospace countries in the world, then who the hell is it? Because I certainly don't think it's China or Russia, and it's certainly not the United Kingdom, which it doesn't leave us many more choices, really.
Well, you know, I go back, and a lot of people are not taking much notice of this, and it's gone under the radar, is the UK's Ministry of Defence UFO study or UAP study, the Condon report, which I think came out in 2000, and of course it was Dr. Ron Haddow that was the author, although at the time there is no name on it. That came out later. And of course that report was classified at the time, so it was only distributed amongst a select number of departments within Whitehall. And what is interesting about that report is they admitted that these UAPs exist, but Dr. Haddow's conclusion was that there was some form of plasma, and that it you know, there was a concern that these plasmas could interfere with, you know, communications, guidance systems on aircraft, you know, and another thing. I mean, how many car stop cases has there been when they've come close to the? But it was plasma, and you know, people have long argued that our own MOD have been telling us a pack of lies for years, because you can go back right to the very early days when they first started looking into a few reports, and they said, you know, they're of no threat, so we're not interested. And they were purely looked at UFO reports to see if it was a threat to the air defence of the UK, i.e. at that point, Chris, it was the Soviets, because we know that the Soviets, even now I believe, still, you know, stretch the great, you know, the big red bear stretches its muscles, and it, you know, they come into our airspace or our waters or whatever you want to call it. So that's pretty much all they were interested in. And as it didn't turn out to be a threat, that was it. It wasn't the Russians, so we're not interested. And that could well be, I hate to say it, but it could well be the truth. It wouldn't surprise me if whatever comes out on Friday isn't something similar. They'll say yes. Because the Ministry of Defence, I've got loads of letters. Anybody can go on the MOD website and download stuff, and they will say, you know, we're not disputing that there are things that we can't identify, but we have no proof that they are extraterrestrial. We don't investigate, and we only look at it from an air defence point of view, and that's it. So it wouldn't surprise me if on Friday we didn't get something similar. Well, you know,
I'm expecting that myself, to be totally honest with you, Phil, in that they will try, and I'm going to use the word pass it off, or the words pass it off, you know, because again, I think that they don't want to admit the truth, actually, right, that something is happening, something is visiting us. Where it's coming from, interdimensional, other planets, other end of the cosmos, or whatever, you know, I don't think they want to admit to that, you know. But wasn't there a report quite recently, that I think it was in a newspaper, and the name of the newspaper skips my mind at the moment, and it basically said that there was no proof that these things are extraterrestrial. I don't know if you saw that.
And allegedly in this new report there's going to be some more film footage released.
Right.
I read that literature today. That there's more to come, because one of the reports was that they're going to be looking at 120 different accounts. But I think you saw a change in the narrative at one point where it was saying they were looking at China and Russia. And a lot of people have been speculating that whatever the UFO phenomenon is, Chris, that the powers that be in the States are going to use that and say, look, we have these UFOs. We don't know what they are. So therefore, they are a threat, in inverted commas. Because if you don't know what it is, you don't know what they're going to do, and we don't know where they come from. Therefore, we need to bolster our defences. So there'll be a bigger payday for the industrial military complex in the US, and maybe there might be other people that benefit. Maybe even NASA. As daft as it seems, there's been a resurgence of interest in space exploration, basically because some of the landers and things like that have actually worked rather than crash and burn as they did not so many years ago. And there's talk about a return to the moon, and so on. So I think there could well be a cash benefit in it from some point of view. So it'd be interesting to see where that narrative goes to.
I actually read something again quite recently. I can't remember. I think it might have been on CNN's website. I can't honestly remember. Basically saying that that NASA was actually looking at some of this footage themselves now, trying to analyse it on behalf of the Pentagon.
Yeah, I read that pretty much myself. I think they're getting in on the act, because whatever these things are, whatever your opinions are, they have gone into the mainstream, and by and large have been treated seriously. I think because of the source, Chris. These certainly the Tic Tac and all that. I'm sick of seeing that damn thing. Well, they are filmed by Top Gun Navy pilots, as simple as that, who, despite what people say, they are human like the rest of us, and can be mistaken. As simple as that. I'm not saying they are mistaken. I'm just saying that some people say, well, if it's a Navy pilot, it must be true. Well, it don't work like that. They are humans and have flaws as the rest of us do. But the way the media sees it, it's come from a reliable source. The young lady that's been with the pilot who was involved didn't want to speak initially, but she's gone public, and it don't hurt the fact that she's a pretty looking woman. I hate to say that. I'm not sexist, but it helps when so far as the media is concerned anyway. So we shall see. Friday will soon be upon us. I think there's going to be a lot of disappointed people. There'll be shouts of cover up, and and I was reading some stuff about Mr. Elizondo today. Of course, wasn't that much long ago he distanced himself from the UFO community, only interacted with them on occasion. Now he's everywhere. I did put in a request for an interview on his website, Chris, and I got a confirmation that we got the email, but that was it.
I think I don't know. I'm not 100% certain of why he announced that he was leaving. Was it to the Stars Academy, TTSA? I think he made that announcement on round about Christmas time last year. That'll be the Christmas of December 2020. I think he was on Coast to Coast with George Knapp when he mentioned that himself. I think it was Chris Mellon and was it Steve Justice were actually walking away to the Stars Academy. I mean, obviously the UFO community, we always get rumours of this, that and the other, but there were rumours of a bit of a fallout, something that it wasn't going the way that he wanted it to go.
Well, they've set up their own company now.
Okay.
And I read the website. They are consultants in all kinds of things, a lot of media. So, but I would literally just maybe an hour before we recorded this today, watching a little YouTube thing that had been made.
It's not that Malcolm Robinson again, is it?
Oh. No. But it was saying that the Pentagon still denies, even today, still denies that Elizondo had anything to do with ATIP, and he's adamant he did. And he apparently he's put in a complaint to the Department of Defense or the Defense Intelligence Agency, basically saying, we besmirching my good name. And he supposedly, with that complaint, submitted documents that show that he was who he says he was.
That's interesting.
But I'm saying, well, I thought, well, where the hell are they? Why can't we?
I'll tell you why I think that's interesting, Phil, because I'm actually putting together at the moment for the Inside Outer Limits, the Outer Limits magazine, actually, YouTube channel, a video which I'm doing along with my brother, and it's going to be about 40 to 45 minutes in length, and we're actually discussing the disclosure debate, and he did. I do remember, I can't remember who made the announcement now, but it was round about this time last year, wasn't it, when this announcement was made? Or was it in 2018? I'm not 100% certain.
Well, there's so much, it's difficult to pin it all down, but what I was looking about, it was literally just released. And the lady who was the spokesman at the Pentagon still denies that Mr. Elizondo had any connection or any association with ATIP, and he's put in a complaint. There were even rumours that he's going to run for election. So politics might be his next move, and then of course Leslie Keane, who broke the story with Ralph Blumenthal and others back in 2017. She's been saying if there's a cover up, the leaks will come out. It'll be leaked, and so it's going to be an interesting couple of days. The kettle's boiling, and we'll see what they deliver on Friday. I haven't got my hopes up, I'll be honest, but I'd love to be proven
I do agree
wrong.
with you, Philip. I do think a lot of people are going to be disappointed. Cover up, we're going to get conspiracy theories left, right and centre, and it's going to be a shame, but they have said in so many words that these things. Did you see there was an interview today on British TV on Loose Women, and was it Loose Women? Let me think. Not 100% certain, but I do know it was today, with former President Clinton, and there was talking about a book that he'd done with, I think it might be some James Patterson, I think it might have been, or James Parrish, I can't remember his name, and they actually asked him about the alien question, and the other gentleman jumped in and he said, usually when President Clinton answers these kind of questions, he does kind of say that, I'm sorry, but I can't tell you, but this other guy basically was saying that you can more or less put your money on it that there are things, and this is when President Clinton started speaking, he did say there are things that are flying around up in space that we know nothing about. That could of course be a Russian craft or a Chinese craft, etc., etc. But
exactly, it's a play on words, isn't it? I mean, I'll give you an example, and it brings us back to your neck of the woods, back in the late 1980s. Hull, Humberside, as it was known as then. We got reports of UFO sightings over Hull, and I was live on air on the BBC radio in Hull as these things were actually taking place, and it was still open then, but I think it's closed now. There was RAF Binbrook, which was, I think, just south of Hull, but they contacted Binbrook and said, anything. They said nothing to do with us, but it was a play on words. It was nothing to do with Binbrook, RAF Binbrook, but it was in fact an Air Force refueling exercise, and they'd taken off from another air base down south, flew up out over the Humber estuary, and basically what you had 2 tankers, and then I think you had 7 jets in formation lining up behind each one. So when you looked up, it looked like this huge triangle of lights going out. It looked like one thing, but Binbrook said It's nothing to do
Yeah.
with us. Us meaning their Air Force base. But
Yeah.
the radio were asking, is it anything to do with the Air Force? So it was a play on
Yeah.
words, Chris. And it's easy done. I think there'll be a lot of that happening over the next few days, one way or another. I really do. But, you know, whatever it turns out, I've said, look, the very fact that there's a report in the first instance has to be positive, irrespective of what that report reveals or doesn't reveal, you know. So I said, you know, take the positives out of it no matter what. And it's ended up on Newsnight on the BBC, which is a very serious programme, and they didn't laugh at it. I sat and watched it. I was amazed when it came on. It's something I watch on a regular basis. And if Loose Women have covered it, then that's big news. You know, Chris Evers and Loose Women, I mean, there's a headline.
Don't tell the wife.
I put the rumour out. Chris Evers has been telling me about
loose women.
Loose
How are you going to
women.
get me shot? Oh dear, I don't know. You know, you mentioned earlier on about Lou Elizondo and that he wasn't actually involved with this ATIP investigation. You know, I mean, obviously it said it ended in 2012 after 5 years, but reporting still continued to suggest that the US government were running programs about UFOs, you know, and it was confirmed in June 2020 with the acknowledgement of that they had a similar military program, which was the unclassified but previously unreported unidentified aerial phenomenon task force. You know, so they are still doing it, even though, you know, he said he was not involved and he wasn't at ATIP or anything like that. But
well, Senator Harry Reid, who's been, you know, partly behind this, and Chris Mellon said that Elizondo was responsible for it going from one department to another. You know, he oversaw that, and that's when he came to the end of his days. But like I said, the Pentagon still denies that he had any involvement with it whatsoever. And you know, we'll wait and see. I mean, you know, Senator Harry Reid has confirmed he was, and so on. But you need a document, don't you? Where's his employment
exactly.
records?
I mean, the interesting thing here is, I mean, according to Elizondo, he left because he was dissatisfied with the way things that were going at ATIP, you know. And I do know Tom DeLong was actually asked for information from John Greenwald, you know, the Black Vault there, I think it's called, what exactly Elizondo did. You know, I know he got a reply to that, and I will let the listeners, so they can go and look up that themselves. But according to the History Channel TV show, Unidentified, which of course came from To the Stars Academy, Elizondo, as it says, quit his role as leader of ATIP because he was frustrated by what he says was a cover-up. But a few weeks later, you know, the Pentagon admits ATIP existed, and it did pursue research and investigate into unidentified aerial phenomena, but Pentagon spokesman Christopher Sherwood told another online presence, which is known as The Intercept, that Mr. Elizondo had no responsibilities with regard to the ATIP program while he worked in USD, which is the Office of Under Secretary of Defence for Intelligence, up until the time he resigned, which was effective of 10th of March 2017. So somebody's lying somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and it's all a bit of a mess. It's a bit like, and I'm sorry to bring his name up, but it's a bit like Nick Pope. You know, Nick Pope claims he run the UK government's UFO project. The only thing is there was no such thing. And for the 3 years that he worked on what got the nickname, and it was only a nickname, the UFO desk, he was a D-grade clerk. And he was responsible for responding to letters sent in by the members of the public, or later emails and that thing. But you know, he didn't run anything, he didn't investigate anything, but nonetheless he was attached to it. And So I don't know if, is Elizondo America's
Yeah.
Nick Pope?
Yeah.
I don't know. I hope not. I hope he's on the level, but it's up to him to prove it, Chris. Not the Pentagon. If I claim something, then it's up to me to prove that claim. I mean, it's like, I worked in industry for 21 years before I took ill in 1999 and could no longer do it. But I have a reference sat in one of my files from my boss. After I left.
Who was it who said? Was it fantastic claims demand fantastic evidence? Was it? I know Stanton Friedman used something similar to that. So where's the evidence, please, Mr. Elizondo? Please bring it out. We would like to see it.
Well, it's the same with Nick Pope, and if you ask him, he refers
Hansard.
you to Hansard that's online. When somebody in Parliament said yes, he does. They obviously didn't know the full scale of his job, and he didn't. But people want to believe that, and good luck.
The thing about Hansard, though, Phil, is people who don't know what it is. It's actually the British Parliament's own newspaper, which it runs reports on what's been going on in the House of Parliament there, either in the Lords or the Commons as they're known. It talks about the things that MPs have been voting on, etc, etc. I mean, I'm not being funny, but Philip Mantle could have his name mentioned in Parliament. I could have my name mentioned in Parliament. Doesn't prove that you're a UFO investigator.
No. If you ever see the House of Commons on the television, they have a stenographer. So everything is recorded. And somebody asked in Parliament, if Nick Pope investigated UFOs, and somebody stood up and said yes, he does. But it's a play on words, Chris. He worked at the UFO desk, so they've interpreted that he works on UFOs, but it's not the case. It's like when I worked in industry on the huge great plant that I worked on. I won't go into all the boring
Bigger than
details.
a tomato plant, was it then, mate?
It was a massive, big, smelly beast. We had 3 of them, and but we had a radioactive warning sticker on the front of it because part of it was radioactive. Now, I didn't work in the nuclear industry ever, and the radioactive part of it was so tiny, Chris, you could have ate it and it wouldn't have done you any harm. But because it was radioactive, you had to display the warning sign. You know what I mean? I'm not going to mention his name because he's dead and gone, but an old friend of mine, they once asked him, it was in the UFO business, if I mention his name, most people will know him. He was asked what he did for a living, and he said, I'm a local government officer. And that was his job title. But it was actually a parking meter attendant. But his job title on his paperwork said local government officer. Sounds great, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
And it's like Nick Pope. He was what's classed as an executive officer. EO sounds marvellous, doesn't it?
Do you know?
But it wasn't.
Do you know, Phil? I think there is a slight difference between Elizondo and Nick Pope in that Elizondo and TTSA were actually quite. Well, they were principal, weren't they, in making the now famous gimbal and Tic Tac footage public. I'm sure they helped in some way, which is a lot more than Nick Pope has done, because all Nick Pope ever does is just agree with what's been said, and and it doesn't really put his point across. He doesn't bring any new information. He just agrees with everything else that has been said. But that's got him onto TV programs. Well, good luck to him,
Yeah. I mean, they brought some evidence to the table with them, but if you go back to 2017, we were expecting a lot more in these last 4 years that was promised. We were hoping that the 2 series that they did of Unidentified would reveal something new. Yeah, it spoke to witnesses who were involved that hadn't been on camera before.
But that's been done 100 times. Phil. It doesn't matter what case it is. That has been done 100 times.
Yeah, and what always made me laugh is Elizondo, when he was on that, he always had a backpack with him. And I'm thinking, what the hell's in his backpack? He took it everywhere with him. and it just made me laugh.
It was his sandwiches, mate.
So, I think I'm going to buy a backpack and I'm just going to take it everywhere with me. And if this is what's in it, I say, I'm sorry, it's top secret. I can't tell you.
If I can show you, but I'll have to kill you.
Sorry. Yeah, that'd be you finished, mate.
Oh, dear.
I'm sorry, but it just a thing I noticed. What the hell's in his backpack? But we'll see, won't we? But again, if you make claims, Chris, it's up to you to support them. And I know other people have supported him, and I understand that. But he's going to do it himself. It's like we going back in time. It's like when Ray Santilli first contacted me and told me he'd got this film from Roswell.
I know what you're going to say.
Great
Show
story,
me the film.
Ray. Great, yeah. Show me the money. Jerry Maguire. Show me the money. Show me the film, Ray. And it took 18 months before he did. But he did. Like, okay, what a fake. But it was a simple question. So. I would say to Mr. Elizondo, well, you've supposedly submitted these documents as part of your complaint. Can we see them? And if not, why not? If they prove you did what you said you did, then let's have a look. But I reckon copies of this report will be distributed here, there, and everywhere on Friday. In fact, by the time we get up on Friday morning, we'll be in advance of it, Chris, because in the States they're behind us, aren't they?
Yeah, about roughly 5 to 9 hours behind us, aren't they? Something like that. So, let's hope we get it first.
So we might be sat having our dinner, and you'll just hear the email going ding, 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 and there you go. You'll know what it is. You won't have to look.
Let's change the subject a little bit, because let's talk a little bit about. Well, what we was going to be talking with Don Schmidt about his book. I know you've got more information on it, Phil, than I have, being the publisher of the said publication. But is it Touched by Roswell? Is that what it's called?
Yeah. Don Schmidt and Tom Carey have been involved with UFOs and Roswell, not just Roswell, for decades. I think Tom is coming up to be almost 80. And they have written a number of books together, some of which have been bestsellers. They are regular on the speaking circuit, home and abroad. Don Schmidt prior to that worked with Kevin Randall, and again they were best-selling authors together. One of their books was turned into the movie Roswell, which was produced by Paul Davids, and that has a part in the alien autopsy film as well. When I last spoke to Don, I reminded him of that, but he didn't know. He'd no idea. But all of their books have been about their research, their investigations into the Roswell case.
I was going to say they're quite involved with the Roswell incident, aren't they?
Yeah, well, it's what they've concentrated on, and so Touched by Roswell. Crash Stories of the Rich and Famous is totally different to anything they've written previously. It is a very commercial publication, so if you're looking to find new revelations about Roswell in it, this is not the book for you. But because they've been involved down the decades with this case, Chris, they have met or come across or others have been involved with Roswell in some way, shape or form. For example, the foreword is written by Roy Thinnes. And if people who don't know who he is, he's the star of the old TV show, The Invaders.
Classic show.
And him and Don have been good friends for 30 plus years. So he's written the foreword for it, and his own involvement is featured later in the book. So you've got film and TV stars. You've also got politicians, all of whom military men, and it's all it's in alphabetical order. And I can't remember his name, but I think the first one is some prince of some little principality.
Is it Liechtenstein?
Yeah, and apparently he stumped up some money for them to do what was called the Roswell dig, the archaeological research into Roswell, and so he kicks it all off. Of course, there's Paul Davids in there, the producer of the Roswell movie, and it's backed up by documents, lots of pictures, the nice solid collection in the center of the book of these famous people, who have some connection to Roswell. It might be a comment in the House of Representatives, or like Bill Clinton. He was the only president at the time to mention Roswell in public,
yes,
and that was in Belfast, in response to a young man's letter to him. And you'll have actors who have become involved in it, things that William Shatner, Captain Kirk, you name it, they're all in there, Chris. So this is even Elvis.
I was just going to mention Elvis. You beat me to it, Phil.
Elvis is not alive. He does not work down our chip shop. But his private jet was parked on the tarmac,
at the old Army Air Force base.
Roswell.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and it was there for decades, for 80 years, I think. So there's a tenuous link there, even to Elvis. But it's all in there. There's the well-known story of the comedian and actor Jackie Gleason, who was good friends with President Nixon. And I think it was Gleason's wife, after he died, told the story that President Nixon took him to see the Roswell dead aliens, or pickled aliens, whatever you want to call them. Well, I've often said, yes, the government do cover things up, but it doesn't mean they've got an alien in their fridge. So there's all these little stories.
It's a good little book to have, Phil, for just a little bit more background information. I mean, it'd come in handy for lecturers, surely, when they're out talking about Roswell. Oh, and this is associated with it, and this is associated. President Nixon, Elvis Presley, Jackie Gleason, etc., etc. It adds more crunch to the bite, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean?
Well, it does. Like I said, it's not a research book. It is a commercial book, and the first entry in it is Prince Hans Adam II of Liechtenstein. Yeah, I know him well. And then you've got well-known actors like Dan Aykroyd, from Ghostbusters.
Yeah, because he's come out of the woodwork, hasn't he, over the I don't know, about the last 10 years or so, saying that he has an interest in the subject.
Absolutely, and I think he's done a couple of videos. There's people in it like Robert Bigelow, who's been involved in all this ATIP stuff as well. It's alleged that the man who really put us on the moon, the German scientist Dr. Werner von Braun, it's alleged that he was involved in the UFO crash at Roswell in 1947. So he's in there as well. There's some people, American sports stars that I would never been able to tell you. If you just give me a name, I would never have known who they were, because American football and baseball and things like that are not that such a hot topic here as cricket and whatever. But they're there. And like we said, there's Clinton in it. There's other members of Congress, astronauts like Gordon Cooper, actors from Star Trek. I mean, you name it, they're all in here, Chris. I like it because it is a different. For Star Trek fans, he's a real sort of cult hero. A chap called John Delancey, and he plays. It's Q, and he was involved in it because they did a radio show, but like a live radio show, and he was part of that. It was a radio play, I should say. I beg your pardon. And there's Mike Farrell from MASH, country and western singers. I mean, you name it, they're all in here. And the Jackie Gleason story is probably one of the longest in the book. But there's, Senator Barry Goldwater's attempts to try and get into Hangar 18. One little fella that's in it that some of our listeners may know from association here in the UK is entertainer TV host, Huey Green.
Yes, yeah. Well, if
Huey
opportunity
Green,
knocks
as
me,
you
get
know,
on it.
that's it. I mean, he was the host of Opportunity Knocks, a talent show. I think it was in the 60s and 70s. Hugely popular show. It was the X Factor of its day. But of course, Green, was in the military.
Canadian military, wasn't he?
Yeah, and he was actually in the area at the time, and he heard about it on the radio. And he says, as I drove through the New Mexico from west to east, I kept hearing the reports about a downed saucer on local stations as I came within the radius of each. I was especially interested in the reports because, no, he was in the RAF. Being in the RAF myself, actually, it says it was the RCF, so it's the Royal Canadian Air Force. I'm remembering the wartime flap about full flighters and flying saucers. And so this was always a rumour, Chris. But when I was, during my time at Bufora, one of our consultants was a chap by the name of Nabil Shaban. Nabil is originally from, I don't know if it's the Lebanon or from Jordan, but he came here as a child, and he's a disabled actor. He played Syl in Doctor Who, so he was like our showbiz consultant. It sounds great, doesn't it? But he's appeared in some well-known movies as well. So we asked Nabil if he could contact Huey Green to either confirm or deny this story. And Nabil, being in the business, did, and Huey Green did reply and did confirm it. And of course, people might know him through the scandal of the wife of Boomtown Rats singer, Sir Bob Geldof, Paula Yates. There was a big scandal before she died, all allegedly involving Huey Green.
To be father, wasn't he?
So it's amazing who pops up, and is involved, or as the title of the book says, has been touched by Roswell. Crashing encounters of the rich and famous. So it is available in an 8x10 book. It's also available in a 6x9 hardback.
I was just going to ask you, because about hardbacks, you've recently made a lot of your older a lot of your publications over to hardback, haven't you? I'm really glad about that.
Yeah, before we were limited to what we could do. It was Kindle and paperback. Paperback in a wide variety of different sizes, Chris, literally. The standard paperback book you buy 6x9 inches. Don't ask me what that is in centimetres, I've no idea. But Touched by Roswell is the larger A4 type format, 8x10, but we are limited to what sizes we can do in the hardback. So they're all. I've actually done 30 plus books now in total. I've actually published 30 plus books, and most of them have now been made available as I've called it a collector's edition hardback, because some of the books have been out for a few years. You may have it, but if you're a collector, you might want the hardback edition. They are no different. There's no difference in the text or anything like that. And so hopefully we'll be in future, we'll be able to keep all our books, make them all available in hardback. There is a limit. That's the only thing on page count. It can't go over so many pages. Like I did the Rendlesham File by Andrew Pike. It's a huge, great tome. It's 600 plus pages, but it's too big. They won't allow me to do it. Which that's the way it goes, Chris. You know. So that's what's been keeping me busy these last few weeks. If nothing else, is converting all our books into hardbacks. And what I'm trying to do with most, if not all, the new books as well, is get them made into audio books, because there seems to be a demand for that as well. So we have a number that are already in audio books. So if you prefer that format, that's fine. You can download it, you know. And I used to have the old talking books, as we used to call them, Chris. On the old, can you remember the old Sony Walkmans? So back in the 90s, when I worked on, and unfortunately I had to work night shifts in the factory on the big plant. It was most of the time it was just boring, Chris. It was a long, boring 12-hour shift. So I used to have the Walkman with a talking book on it, you know, with little headphones on. And I remember one night the boss come down and he said, "Philip, you can't have headphones on." I said, "Why?" He said, "Well, if the fire alarm goes off, you won't be able to hear it." I said, "I'll tell you what, go set the fire alarm off and I'll tell you if I can hear it." And he wasn't best pleased. He said, "But no, you've got to take them off. You see, if you walk out onto the shop floor, you might not be able to hear the fork truck." I said, "I won't wear them on the shop floor. I'll leave it here where I'm working on the plant." He says, "You're just not allowed to wear it." I said, "Look, if you don't allow me to wear them, I'm not feeling very well and I'm going home." You know, "I'm going to go to the doctor in the morning. You won't see me for a couple of weeks." And he stormed off in a huff. He'd lost the argument. He was right in what he was saying, but where I was at, there was no way I could hear everything, Chris. You know, you remember the little tiny earphones you used to wear with the little bit of sponge around, and that's all they were. But now everything's digital now, and so I literally, you know, submitted a book today to try and get it made into an audio book, and we'll see. That's the next one on the list that's coming out on August the 1st. It's again totally different to Touched by Roswell. It's by a chap called Ryan Musgrave Evans.
Oh, is this the Australian gentleman?
Yeah, I've literally just put one in the post for you for review. And he's down under, and it's called Children of Orion. And he's searching for the crypto-terrestrials, and it's a very different book once again, because Ryan claims that aliens, elves, you know, etc., jinns, they're all the same thing, and they've been on Earth since day one. You know, they are, and you know, they live in parallel with us, and they can do all this and all that. So, and he's even had his own encounters, which are detailed in the book, as well as other people's, and he's done his own sketches of them. And we discussed whether we should use sketches. And I said, "Look, these are your own drawings of the things you've encountered. You don't have to be, a top artist. It gives it an air of authenticity." So they're all in the book as well. I gave him the option of holding the book over, because when it comes out on August the 1st, it's totally different from any of this Tic Tac stuff and Navy videos. So if you want to hold it over until next year, we can do. But he said, "No, let's go for it." So that'll be on sale on August the 1st. And I've literally just sent review copies out. So yours is on its way, and I've got a parcel of books going to Australia as well. So I've told Ryan to keep his eyes open for them being delivered.
So let's do the nitty-gritty bit now then. Where do we get them from? And we know they're out on August the 1st, but if you want to tell us where we get them from, Phil.
Well, they'll be on Amazon, obviously, but if you just go to flyingdiscpress.com, that's disc with a K, flyingdiscpress.com, all the books, old and new, are all listed there. And all you have to do is think, "Oh, I like that." Just click on it, and it'll take you straight to Amazon. And you can see it. When you have it in different formats, Chris, as you know, on Amazon, each format is there on the same page. You don't have to go looking elsewhere. It's all there. And it'll tell you, audio book, Kindle, paperback, hardback, and you take your pick. And the good thing about the hardbacks, Chris, is they're not that much more expensive than the paperbacks. So, you might pay $4 or $5 extra for a hardback book. In the old days, what they used to do, Chris, is they used to publish the hardback first. And most of those were used for review purposes. This is the day before digital technology. I'm talking the old days when something would fall through your letterbox. So the hardbacks didn't necessarily make a lot of money. They were swiftly followed by the paperback, and it was usually the paperback that made the money on it. Because I remember the first book that Carl and I wrote, Carl Negatis and I, we were up without consent, which came out in hardback. We got a ton of reviews because Carl used to work in the newspaper industry. So he just called in all the favours that people owed him. We were in 5 or 6 national newspapers and God knows how many locals. And we were just about to go to the paperback, and the publishing company went bust.
Oh, okay.
So we didn't get any paperbacks. We published it a few years later with somebody else, and we didn't get any money either.
Not good. Not good. Well, what is the idea behind Flying Disc Press then, Phil? What was it about bringing these books from foreign lands? Because that is where the vast majority of your work comes from. You know, I know we've got various areas of Europe and various American publications and so on, but what was the idea behind starting Flying Disc Press?
What it was, Chris, back in 2015, I was as you know, I like yourself, I've been a magazine editor previously. I've edited 2 or 3 different things, and I've been involved so long, I knew people all over the place. And a friend called Peter Chielibius in Poland emailed me a manuscript. He'd written a book. Now, it wasn't after getting it published. Peter's speaking English is very good. He was practicing his written English. And he asked me as a favour if I'd go through it and give him some feedback. So I did. And I just thought, hellfire, it's good, this is good, this. And as you know, my friend John Hanson already run Haunted Skies, which I'd recommend to anyone. And I'd been talking with John about the years that were cut, because John says, what you're going to do once you finish work. I'm 63 now, so you can work out that I was 50 plus, late 50s. So I said, I hope when I retire that I might go into something like this myself, John, publishing. But I'll leave it until I've retired and I can concentrate on it. So, but John encouraged me and showed me how to do it, Chris. I made a few mistakes, so I thought, I'll give it a go. So in 2015, I published UFOs Over Poland by Peter. The idea being, Chris, that UFOs, whatever they are international. And one of the only things that stops us getting information from wherever is the language barrier. So I thought we had an excellent book, most of which anybody who only, like me, only speaks English would never have seen before. And I thought it's a great addition to the UFO literature. So I published it. It did okay. It got some good reviews. And then in 2016, I took seriously ill again. For those who not aware, I've had heart problems for many years, and I just at that point, Chris, I couldn't get back on my feet, and I got the opportunity to take early retirement. So reluctantly, I didn't want to pack in working, but reluctantly, I took early retirement, and I thought, right. I'll concentrate on UFO research, writing stuff, and publishing books at Flying Disc Press. So that was followed up with UFOs Over Romania by Dr. Dan Farkas. Again, an excellent book, Chris, because there is stuff in there that even somebody like me who's been involved for 40 plus years never have heard it before, because it was only ever published in the Romanian language. And I made a lot of mistakes. So my idea was to try and bring, wherever possible, because I can't afford to pay translators, that it's just me here.
I was recommend that when you said something about going to English. I was going to make a comment about it being Yorkshire English,
Yeah, well, exactly. And I've tried wherever possible to publish material from other parts of the world. We have book in from Japan. We have another one from Brazil. We have 2 from Bertolinotti in Italy. A third one is on its way. the book is finished. Roberto was just
UFOs
waiting
over
for the
Italy
report coming
versions
out.
1 and 2,
Yeah.
aren't they? Parts 1 and parts 2 up to now, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll have part 3. He wants to round it off with whatever comes out on Friday. So that's the ethos behind it, and I try to bring out new material and some classic cases. And of course, the case we visited was Pascagoula, and published the books by Calvin Parker, the first of which became an Amazon bestseller. Amazed all of us, absolutely amazed all of us. And that will continue. If I get the opportunity to publish these books, then I will. And they won't necessarily make a lot of money, but that's just the way it is. I'll gladly take a hit. But we've also branched out a little bit. So we now have Flying Disc Press in France. That's run by my colleague Jean Libero. John has a free range, so I don't tell him what he has to publish. So he will be publishing some of the books that I do, but he'll also be taking on other authors as well, maybe from the States or wherever. Jean, by profession, is a translator, and I think we've already got 6 books out now in French. Then we have Dario Hernandez in Argentina. Dario's got 4 or 5 of our books in Spanish. So were it not for the pandemic, Chris, we previously got a book of mine and Paul Stonehill's in Russian. We had 2 more lined up to come out with the same company in Russia. We had a whole raft of our books due to come out with a German publisher, and maybe even one in Italy. I am discussing as we speak 3 of our books with a Dutch publisher. They contacted me. I have sent all of our books, every single one, to a publisher in India, and obviously there's 30 plus books, so it's going to take some time to go through them. Whether they'll decide on 1 or 2 of them or none, I have no idea, Chris. So I'm still trying to think ahead and still, get our information and our books out to as wider audience as possible. And, fingers crossed.
Absolutely. I'm just going to say, Phil, it's like Without the Limits magazine and Flying Disc Press. Be informed. Get the information out there. Read it.
Well, that's it, Chris. I mean, I don't pretend to know everything. I think anybody that does is talking nonsense. And it's amazing what you learn, because not only that, Chris, when you publish these books, and I'm sure the same happens with the magazine, because being a magazine editor myself, I know how it works. Sometimes you'll get stuff come in and you'll think, hellfire, I didn't know that. And something you publish may generate something else. Somebody may read one of those books and say, oh, something like that happened to me. For example, for those who are not aware of Calvin and Parker and Charlie Hickson's story, they were fishing on the Pascagoula River in Mississippi, October the 11th, 1973. I'm not going to go into the whole story. They had an abduction, okay? But a big story. When Calvin's book came out in 2018, the first one, we got details of a lady and her husband who were said to be on the other side of the river at the same time, at the same night, Chris. And they witnessed what happened to Charlie and Calvin. Long story, spoke to them. It's a Mr. and Mrs. Blair. Sadly, in the intervening 3 years, Mr. Blair has passed away. But we spoke to him and he's gone on the record. Mrs. Blair said he worked in the fishing industry, I believe. They were waiting for his boat to come in, and they saw the blue UFO over the opposite side of the river. Then she says there was this big splash. And when she looked down, and she says there's a grey man in the water. Literally. And he went under the water and he never come back up again. And Mr. Blair, almost like a deathbed confession, finally admitted he'd seen that. He called it a grey humanoid. he said he saw it come up out of the water and go back across the river, and he said he saw the UFO take off. Now, I've been contacted in just literally in these last couple of days whether the gentleman in question will give us any more information. He claims him and his two friends, not in a totally different location, totally different time frame, but they all saw something similar under the water, as reported by Mr. and Mrs. Blair. So I'm trying to get him, to provide some more information. So by publishing that, it generates information about other cases in different areas. You see, if you see what I mean, or people just read it and think, well, something happened to me. I'll report it to Mr. Mantle, and of course, when they do, if I write it, it goes to Outer Limits magazine.
Absolutely.
It's simple as that.
Now, talking of Outer Limits magazine, in the last few minutes of the show, I've got a little bit of a statement that I need to make. It concerns people who have bought tickets for the conference, which was due to be held in Hull on the 21st and 22nd of August this year. I know this date was a new date because we had to postpone the 2020 event because of COVID, and I'm afraid the 2021 event in August has also been hit by COVID. It's really the UK restrictions on travel from foreign countries. It's when you arrive in England, you have to travel directly to the place that they're staying in. These American attendees to the conference, Peter Robbins and Jennifer Stein and so on, and they're not allowed to leave until 10 full days have passed. So in effect, they have to go to a government registered hotel and stay there for 11 days. It's continuous from the day that they arrive in England and lasts for the next 10 full consecutive days. So it's up to like 11:59 in the evening on day 10. And if they've not arranged a quarantine package prior to arrival in England, they face a penalty of up to £4,000. It's a fine of £4,000, and they have to pay for the quarantine package on top of that, which is £1,750 on arrival. As I say, with the two visitors that we had planned for this event, it would mean something like £3,500 or $4,946, which just to cover the cost of staying in a hotel, which would basically mean that the event would run at a loss financially before it even begins. And I'm not prepared to run an event that is in the red before it begins, which as you'll agree, it makes sense, Phil,
Well, you just can't do it, Chris. I mean, you're not a charity. You've tried your damnedest. I know in speaking with you held off for as long as you could before you were forced to make that decision. And there's no other decision you can make. But we soldier on. It will go ahead next year. There might be a few changes.
That's right,
you never know.
That's right. It is planned, Phil, to go ahead on May the 7th and the 8th, 2022, at the Freedom Centre, the original centre that we've used for several years now. And the only other time we haven't been there is when we popped over to visit you in Pontefract, which was a great little event. But people have got options. That they have two choices. They can either keep the tickets and present that ticket at the new date in 2022, or they're entitled to a refund. And now the refund is non-negotiable. What they have to do is email me at theouterlimitsmag.com, and I will send them the information of how to get the money back for the event that was due to be held in August this year. On the opposite side, as I've just said, they don't have to do that at all. If they still want to come in May next year, May 2022, just hold on to the tickets. Don't worry about it. And as I say, we'll see you at that venue at 97 Preston Road, Hull next year.
Yeah, I mean, you're not alone in this, Chris, because, I've looked at conferences that have been in different parts of the world that have either had to cancel, and change, or some of them have gone virtual, of course. They've been done online. But I think you've made the right decision, and we'll look forward to next year.
I was actually asked, would I do it as a virtual conference? And I thought, well, No, I won't, because I've promised people Peter Robbins in the flesh, so to speak. It's all right. He's not stripping off, folks. I've promised to get Peter in the flesh and Jennifer in the flesh as well, and that is what I want to deliver. But I will say, whatever happens next year, the conference will go ahead on those dates. The only problem that I had, apart from paying out these fines for putting them in hotels or which were, in my opinion, are absolutely ridiculous for 10 or 11 days in an hotel. The only other problem that I had was actually booking a flight from America to the UK. There are none available, so that kind of knocked it on the head as well.
Yeah, but you've done the only thing you could, make. Look forward to next year.
The only other thing that I've got going on at the moment, Phil, I don't know if you'll be taking part yourself. 2nd of July this year is World UFO Day, and Outer Limits magazine are doing a little sky watch. So if people, you don't have to pack up and take a tent or anything like that. You can actually do it from your own back garden, and just sit in your own back garden for maybe an hour or so after dark on that date, 2nd of July. And if you see anything that looks interesting, or you can grab photos or video, then please send it to the Outer Limits magazine, at the address that's in the magazine, or the Outer Limits mag, all one word, the Outer Limits mag at gmail.com.
I mean, good idea that, Chris. What I think I'll do is send my Mrs. Christine out into back garden, and I'll watch her through the patio windows, and I say, "Give me a shout."
Well, she can cut the grass while she's out there, mate.
Well, yeah, I never thought of that.
As well.
Yeah, good.
Have you got ladders good enough for her?
Yeah.
She's going to kill me next time I see her.
Yeah. But so I will spend an hour out in the back garden, because there's not many lights around the back where we live. Got a big garden, so I shall do that. It's unlikely you'll see anything, but who knows, mate? Who
knows? You might be surprised. I mean, most of these sightings, it's just people being in the right place at the right time, or the wrong time if you're abducted.
It is. Yeah, absolutely.
So, Phil, I think we've gone off our time that we set ourselves, and it's been great for just me and you to have a natter for a change, which is quite interesting at times and very informative with speaking with yourself. And of course, we're waiting for this publication to come out in just a couple of days as we speak. And listen, mate, it's been great to speak with you. Look after yourself.
Yeah, and same to you, Chris. We'll see on Friday.
We'll see who's right and who's wrong.
See who's right.
Might both be right or both be wrong. You never know.
Well, I blame that fella Malcolm Robinson for whatever's wrong.
It's his fault. His Wally ain't big enough, mate. That's what it is. All the best to you. He's got no excuses whatsoever. All the best to you, Phil. I'll speak with you again soon.
All right, mate.
Bye bye, everybody. Thanks for listening.